Hello, hello. This is Heather, aka Planner Mumsy. Join me as we talk about different stamping pads to use in your Sanzen Tomoe River Paper notebooks. Stay tuned. Hey y'all, so I had some questions about different stamping inks to use on the Tomoe River Paper Sanzen paper. So let's just go ahead and talk about different types that we can use. I'm going to show you some examples in my planner of some bleed through and some ghosting, and we're going to talk about some ways to try to thwart that and some things that you can use that may not cause as much of an issue. Let's get right to it. Okay, in my current common planner, I have a couple pages that bled through pretty heavy with the Stays On stamps. This is my favorite little butterfly stamp, and as you can see, it bled through the other side almost so much so that it looks like I stamped this end when I didn't. As far as the Stays On stamps go, my suggestion would be to kind of do a double stamping, and I will show you in some different, I don't want to do it in my planner, but I have some other Sanzen paper here that we're gonna swatch out and discuss with the same stamp. So this is the Sanzen, Stays On, if I can speak correctly, we'll be doing good. The Stays On ink pad, and as you can see, it gets really dark when I just touch it with the pad. Definitely it's going to bleed through when I do my very first stamping. You can see how dark it is, and actually I'm going to cover this puppy up because I made like a fatal error the other day and got some on my notebook. But you can see on the other page, this one bled through so much that it bled through that page all the way into the next page. But I still have some stamping material left on there. The very next one shouldn't bleed through nearly as much. It may ghost, but it shouldn't bleed through. There you go. Now, let's go ahead and flip it over, and it did bleed through, definitely. Let's do a third stamping. So stamping number 3, let's see if I can completely get an image, and barely. And it still tried to bleed through in spots. So I'm definitely gonna say to steer clear of Stays On. That's really probably the best thing that I can offer. Is as far as the TRP paper goes, the Stays On ink pads are probably a pretty much no-go. So we're gonna put that one aside. The next one that I used was this Hero Arts Ombre, and it does say that this is a vibrant dye ink, and you can see it there. And we will flip the page, and you can see it bled through. So we're gonna just do an example of that again. And like I said, this is saying that it is a dye ink. So really the type of ink pad really does make a difference. Okay, and again, you can see that there is a lot of material on there. Stamping it the first time, let me get this out of the way, and you can see full bleed through on the other side. Stamping it the second time without re-padding it, and let me cover that one up again so I don't have a big mishap. The second time it bled through again, and the third time It barely made an impression and it still kind of bled through, and a lot of them are bleeding through into the next page, which I should have put like ink blotting paper on the next page, which I'll do now. I should have done that before, but I didn't. And I'm just using a non-alcohol baby wipe to clean these off in between. Okay, so we're just gonna jump to a cheapy Craft Smart, and this says that this one is dye based as well. I'm just kind of pulling out the different kinds so that we can kind of compare and get an idea of what's gonna work and what's not. I've not used this one for a while, and I have a feeling that this pad might be no good, but let's try. I guess we'll start back up at the top. All right, nope, it did work. Let's cover it up, and I'll just kind of have that in view. Now, it definitely ghosted, but there is no bleed through on this. Now, bear in mind, not only is this a lavender, but it's an older pad, so there is a very good chance that it's just not as wet as it used to be. But it does seem to be working with just ghosting. So these are just like cheapy ones that you can get at either Hobby Lobby or Michael's, and they are just the Craft Smart dye based. Lavender, so it's a lighter color, and this one just ghosted and didn't bleed through. So I'm gonna set this one aside so we can talk about the ones that just ghosted and didn't bleed through, and then the ones that didn't do anything at all. Okay, next I'm going to jump to a Ranger Archival ink, and I have a feeling this one's just gonna straight bleed through, and of course I am stamping it kind of hard, but I am doing that on purpose because I don't, you know, like that's what I do in real life. I stamp hard because I want to make sure that I'm getting my full stamp impression. So it still did stamp the second time. So I got bleed through on the first and ghosting on the second. And then my third, will I be able to get a full image? Barely. So no real ghosting on the third, but barely an image. So anyway, that is the Ranger Archival. So if you're using these, I would suggest to do a single stamp on another piece of paper, and then where you want to do your stamp, make your second impression your stamp, and you'll just get ghosting. That one's kind of like an in-between, because really the first stamp did bleed through, but you can kind of get away with the second stamp and it not bleeding through. All right, then we're gonna go to the Ranger Distress Oxides. Now, I know that you're not like this is a Distress Oxide. It's supposed to be used for other things, but I use them as regular stamp pads too. Okay, y'all, I am having serious technical difficulties today with recording. I stamped out the Distress Oxide ink. For some reason, my camera's just like dropping off. I don't know what's going on, but these are the 3 things that I stamped. So that was the first time I stamped it, the second and the third. And as you can see, there is a little bit of ghosting on the first, but the second and the third are actually, stampings are actually pretty good. I'm definitely gonna lump the Distress Oxide into the category of just ghosting, but no bleed through. So I'm gonna set that one aside. Okay, then we have a pigment ink, and this is the Delicata, and this is in a pink shimmer. And I'm just gonna make sure that I wiped the end of this off, and let's just get some pink shimmer on our stamp and go for our first stamping. And oh, it is light. I don't think that's, yeah. Let's try that again. I'm really thinking maybe this ink pad is a little bit more for like a black paper. You'd probably see it much better on a black because you can't really see it on a white. Okay, lesson learned. Basically, I was just kind of pulling out different pads that stated they had a different type of ink on them. So I'm gonna say that the Delicata Shimmer inks are really just a no-go for stamping unless maybe you have a dark color. Then I have the Dewdrop Brilliance pad, and I really like these ones a lot because the pad itself is really small, but I really like the shimmer effect that you get with the Brilliance line. And I will bring that in a little closer. And this is definitely a light color, so I don't think we're gonna have any issues at all with ghosting. Okay, let's cover this up. But this is the Brilliance Dew Pad, and let's look at it. Pull it up to the camera. And you can see, if you look really close, you can see ghosting, but the further away you get, the less you really see that. I think for the most part, the Dewdrop inks are going to be a really, really good choice. And the Dewdrop inks are pigment inks as well, which is kind of why I thought this one would work. Let's grab a different, darker Dewdrop. And let's just see if it makes much of a difference. I think, what is this? This is a black. But see, some of the dewdrops are chalk and some of them are pigment. And I actually even think that there's one other kind. But let's try a black in the Dewdrop series and see what we get. Okay. This one might bleed through just because it's black. Maybe not. Okay, you're really only gonna get 2 stampings out of that. And let's flip it and see what we got. Really nothing. The black on that one worked. Okay, there's a pigment, and I have used this one before. Let's try this one. That black's probably going to come off with the purple when I put it on the pad, but let's try it. Okay, I'm going to move this there. I love this one. Oh, that's so pretty. And cover that up before I get ink on my notebook that I don't want ink on for sure. Okay. And then we will flip this page so you can see that one. So there is ghosting for sure, but that is it. Okay, my last and favorite new stamp pad, and here it is. It is the Shakihata oil-based ink pad. And I have been using this one a lot lately. This is a lighter color, and I do have some darker colors coming. One thing I can tell you is the oil inks seem to pull off the old inks from your pad. So instead of this being pink, it's probably going to be pink and black. Yep, I was right. So you can kind of see a little bit of the black on there. And I mean, it's kind of neat, but it's definitely, it's not what we're going for. We really want just like a straight pink color, but you can see that with that, it is going to, you're not going to have the bleed through on the pink side. Teeny bit of ghosting, but most of it is because it pulled that black but on this one, there's virtually no ghosting at all. So the oil-based inks, in my opinion, at least this particular brand, are going to be a really, really good option for no bleed through. One final thought on what else you can use, and this is always a really great idea. You can grab one of your Tomoe markers, and you can take the brush side and you can literally just brush on your ink onto your underside of your stamp, and then you can just stamp it onto your paper. La! Now, I picked a dark color, and I pushed really hard, so there's like a couple of teeny dots of bleed through, but you really can use, the thing about that, this is nice, is that if you already have Tomoe markers, you don't need to buy all of these stamps. And if you're one of those people that likes to super coordinate your Tomoe markers with what you have going on, then this is a really good option to be able to stick with the same exact color. But any of the lighter colors, you're not going to have a lot of bleed through. I can do one more, oops, wrong bag. I'll do one more example just to show y'all that the bleed through is really, really very minimal with the Tomoe markers. And I like this as an option because it just kind of gives me lots more color. Now, when you have a small stamp like this, it's no big deal. Obviously, if you're doing a big stamp, it's kind of a pain to sit there and try and color it. But, well, that was a poor example because there's a sticker. Let's see if there's any left on this side. Yeah, there's not going to be any bleed through in that, but there was a sticker there, so that's not a good example because I can't show bleed through when it's got a sticker behind it. So let's try one more time. You do pretty much need to paint it on for every single stamping though, for the most part. Okay, and I did that as dark as I could, so you can see a little bit of bleed through in a spot or two, and it did pick up on some of the black as well because you can see some black specks. But for the most part, using the Tomoe, you're not going to have the bleed through. This is a good way to clean your ink pad off too, is to just like re-stamp it, and then you can wipe with your non-alcohol based wipe. Some people actually use alcohol to clean it. I may do that now and again, but I don't do it as a regular because it does tend to break down the plastic over time. But okay, so the final conclusion of the no bleed throughs would be the Dewdrop Brilliance inks. Let's move these aside. Here we go. The Dewdrop Brilliance inks and the oil inks, and any lighter Tomoe marker that you would have. So say like a light blue or any of these lighter ones really are not going to bleed through. The darker ones probably will, but the lighter ones pretty much will not. So that's what you have as your options for no bleed through whatsoever. For just minimal ghosting, you can use your distress oxides, or these kind of cheap craft mark dye-based ones. And depending, if you use these, you want to do essentially like two, you know, you want to have like your second, oops, that's out of frame. You want to make sure that you have your second stamping for the Ranger inks or like the Hero Arts or any of those. So that's the final conclusion. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment down below. If y'all have any other stamps, these are just the ones that I have, but if you have any other stamps that you're using that are not bleeding through on the Tomoe River Paper, Sanzen paper, then definitely please comment down below and let me know, because I totally want to be able to have other options if I make that decision for my Tomoe River Paper. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye!